The city of Portland is facing a historic budget gap of $93 million in its general fund. On Friday, the city administrator's office released the first draft of proposed cuts to departments. They include nearly 300 layoffs and cuts to major departments. If you missed our story on Friday, we dove into the details. Check it out later tonight on the KGW YouTube page. But a major question mark hangs over how the city will pay for existing homeless shelters, let alone new ones the mayor wants to open as part of his plan to end unsheltered homelessness by the end of this year. A big reason for the historic shortfall, city leadership blames one-time federal dollars they got during the pandemic that were used to start programs. But there was no plan in place to pay for those programs once the money ran out. And now it has. So it's up to the new 12-person city council and Mayor Keith Wilson to clean up the mess that some in the city blame on the former mayor Ted Wheeler and the city's 4 commissioners in our old form of government, simply passing the tough decisions on to the new administration. The current city council is mostly fresh faces new to city government, but there is one person who served as a commissioner during Ted Wheeler's time and who won election to our current council as well. He joins us live tonight. Councilor Dan Ryan. He was first elected to Portland City Council in 2020 and is now serving District 2 in North and Northeast Portland on our new council. Councilor Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Blair. It's great to be here.
So let's get right to it. Many are blaming one-time dollars the city got during the pandemic for much of the shortfall that we're seeing now. Now, since you served on council during that time, tell us, were there talks of what would happen once that money ran out? And did you do anything to try and prevent this type of shortfall from happening?
Absolutely, we had those conversations. We had those conversations about every investment, that there would be a ramp up and then there would be a ramp down. And what was most important is that we focused with those investments on our top 3 priorities: public safety, homelessness, and economic development. I can speak to 2 that I was behind and promoted to the rest of the council and were passed. One was actually moving our permitting bureau from the disorganized 7 bureaus to aligning it into one streamlined division. That became apparent for many, many decades, and we needed to focus on economic development. So we got some continuous improvement experts into the budget back at that time, and they were the cat herders that actually allowed us to streamline the permitting system. The other one, which you followed closely, was the development of the Safe Rest Villages. We were suffering in the humanitarian crisis, still are, but we were really suffering at that moment and not really providing any services that those who were chronically homeless were saying yes to, and that we were getting them into stability. We are now noticing that at the Safe Rest Villages, the results are much better than the traditional shelters that we had prior to that. And I'm proud of that, and I know that those proof points have been noticed, and that's why those are now being incorporated into the system, delivery system that we desperately need in our city and in our county.
So I know those are great programs, but were there any talks, and did you have a plan for when that money was going to run out?
We had a plan, of course we did. We were hoping that, 1, we would be able to streamline the permitting system in this window of time, check. We were also hoping that we would get some proof points that said these new services for shelters would actually get better results than what we were seeing, check. And so both of those were what you do with a one-time investment. You do it to stimulate the enterprise so you can actually make some systemic improvements that were desperately needed. All of the other money that I know of that went out into the community, all of those gifts, if you will, went out with a lot of clarity that this was one-time funding. Everyone knew this was coming. It was not a surprise. What's probably been more surprising and challenging is our revenue is down because we aren't generating as much investment and revenue in the city of Portland. And so that's what we must continue to do if we're going to bring back my hometown.
So Council President told me on Friday that you all will be digging beyond what was proposed as far as the cuts in the initial document. Any idea of where you will be looking for alternative ways to fill this gap?
Yeah, I think there's some actually big opportunities here. I've always in my career used these opportunities as a way to do some culture change, some work that's been needed for some time. 2 bigger ideas on that would be where we see some duplication of services. We have centralized services, and then we have growing services that do the same thing within our bureaus. So where you say human resources, communication, procurement for a few, where you see those duplications, we need to ensure that if it is the centralized system, that it's fluid enough and responsive enough to make sure that we're giving the customer service that's necessary. And we have to start there. We also could look at some of the current critical mission services within our other bureaus. For example, we have some duplication, in my opinion, of planners and engineers. If they're working on projects that we have no money for, there's nothing in the forecast that will have money for those services, then those positions could be eliminated and we could focus on those that are filling the potholes as opposed to those that are planning 10 years out for something that we have no money in line for. So it's going to be tough, but it's necessary. And there are some duplications that actually needed to happen, just like we saw with permitting, where you can make those cuts that actually improve the system. I was pruning all weekend, so anyone that gardens knows this. You got to prune to grow and to actually bear better fruit.
We know one of the groups to face the most cuts, 52 potential cuts, is Vibrant Communities, which you served as commissioner. How do you foresee those cuts, if they go into place, impacting downtown revitalization efforts?
Yeah, well, Vibrant Communities is basically parks is what you're speaking to, I believe, Blair, because the other two are smaller programs. One's restricted and the other is tiny. But with parks, it's going to be tough, but you have to make some decisions that look at where we might have, again, some duplication of services. We have some extra people doing those same jobs within parks that they're centralized, that could be a part of the enterprise that Mike Jordan speaks of. And so I think that's one. You also have to look at the geography and where we're seeing the highest usage at our community centers. And if there's some that have lower usage, that those could be vulnerable. I'd rather make sure that what we do well, and make sure that we keep providing swim lessons, we keep providing recreational activities for elders. We have to make it so people want to continue to move here, raise their families here, and age in place here. And so really being focused on those services. But there's an opportunity here to see some duplication within Vibrant Communities as well. And I don't think we're going to see the same number, Blair, of the work areas that we currently have. I'm sure those could be trimmed down. And on all of that, I'm looking forward to what Mayor Wilson and City Administrator Mike Jordan will bring to us. They only brought us a partial budget, and we need to see the 100% fully loaded, and I look forward to that coming from the two of them. I know they're having the same conversations, but that's what I've been telling.
And as it stands right now in that draft partial recommendations, police, fire, 911, Portland Street Response, they won't be facing any cuts. Do you believe it will stay that way?
I'll sure support that. I think it's not a time for us to make one penny cut. In fact, we should be investing in public safety at this time. Portlanders want to feel safe. We know that we need a high functioning police and fire bureau at the city of Portland at this time.
Another big question mark hangs over the mayor's $28 million plan to build more shelter beds, day centers. As we previously just talked about, you led the city's Safe for Us Villages program, so you know what it takes to financially open shelters. Any idea how you might look to fund the mayor's shelter plan, or do you anticipate his plan changing?
I think that the mayor, first of all, it added to the deficit, the 28 million, and so, but it's also something that will add to what I think Portlanders wanted. That's why he was elected mayor. I know he's out there working the halls of government, other government agencies, and also the private sector. So I look forward to what Mayor Wilson comes to the table with. I know he won't come empty-handed. We know that about this mayor. He's enthusiastic, he's optimistic, and he's making the case on why Portland's a good investment at this time. And I look forward to hearing about where he's coming up with that revenue.
And for the first time, there are 12 people on City Council facing this massive task of closing this historic gap. On Friday, the city administrator hinted that each councilor has 12 strong opinions about 12 different things. How do you think it's going to go trying to get a majority to agree on where to make cuts?
It's our job. And so our job is to come together as one council and make sure that we get it done with a balanced budget that preserves our basic services. It allows us to get focused on our primary mission. Our best days are here to come if we, as a group of 12, behave as a group that is working together to do our best for Portland at this time. I have faith in my colleagues, and I know there'll be some tension. I know that we're all passionate about what we want, but it's not a time to go back to all of our campaign promises. It's time to be focused on where we are today. Focus on the core services that run this city, and together we will build it back. We have to go from being 80 out of 81 cities in the country in terms of investment and reputation, and we have to move that up. And when that starts to move up, there'll be revenue in the near future. But we have to focus today on the basics.
Councilor Dan Ryan, thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome, Blair. Take care.